Hey guys, Nicole here with Obscure Reptiles and Caging, and today we're going to be showing you 3 different ball python setups. So let's get started. Hey guys, so in front of me we have 2 different setups, and behind you is actually a 3rd setup. We're going to go from worst setup to best setup. So a lot of people out there don't know too much about ball python care. They go to a pet store, they see big glass tanks like this, they think, okay, the picture is on the side of the glass tank, it says terrarium, and it has a ball python, and normally what's included is either a heat mat, something like this Zilla heat mat right here. You can get a dome. This one just so happens to be a larger dome, and then a glass tank. And then inside here we just have, this is plastic, but a lot of times they come with ceramic water dishes. And this is just a blackout hide. It's the only type of hide that we have here. But normally it comes with one hide. And then this is pretty much the entire kit. So the reason why this is our worst setup is, depending on the size of your ball python, whether it's a tiny baby or a full-grown adult, this cage is not what's going to be best for them. The biggest reason, this one, it is a little bit nicer than a normal one because it's actually blackout painted on the back 3 sides and only the front, so the animal can't see out as much, which is a little bit better, but that doesn't help things like humidity, temperature. When you touch glass, it's always cold. These are cold-blooded animals, which means they cannot produce their own heat. So by putting them in something like this, almost anywhere they're going to touch is going to be cold to them. Glass doesn't hold in humidity, and because someone actually surrendered a ball python to us, that's why we have this setup. But as you can see, it's just a screen lid. So number 1, ball pythons can easily get out of here. You normally have to set bricks on here. There are little latches you can get, but a ball python can normally easily push its way out, depending on the type of locks you buy. Normally people put bricks or something that don't look too nice to begin with on top. But the only way to make sure you have enough humidity and proper temperature would be to use something like foil and then duct tape it and then make it so that there's limited airflow, which also is not good for the animal. When it comes to heating for these big things, again, you have either the heat lamp or you can use the heating pad. These both have their own pros and cons. The reason why I don't like a normal heating pad is you can't control the temperature. You just plug this right into the socket and this will start heating. I've actually tracked I went and bought a brand new one, actually the larger size of this one, just so I could track the temperatures, and the thing fluctuated from the 80s all the way up to 120 degrees at its hottest. That will burn your ball python, and only being in the 80s is too cold for your ball python. You can hook these up to thermostats, which do make them better. And the reason I really don't like these is generally people will leave them on 12 hours and turn them off 12 hours. That way the ball python has its normal day and night cycle, but in the 12 hours of nighttime, normally that lets your cage get too cold. There's no way, unless you have one of these underneath, to be able to keep them warm. It's not too bad when you've got both of these, but still you're not able, if you don't have a thermostat on this controlling it, that makes the temperature pretty much all over the place, and that is not good for your animal. Now inside here, we have the very simple setup. We've got just a regular old water dish. This isn't able to be used as a hide. Depending on how big your snake is, the animal's most likely not even going to be able to fit inside of this. We have an aspen bedding. This is how the lady brought it to us. Aspen, you can use normally for rat stuff like that. This is the big, large stuff. So unfortunately, aspen can hold humidity pretty well and it's not too terrible, but it does mold incredibly quickly. So this is not a very good bedding that we would recommend. We'd recommend something like a coconut husk. That normally holds humidity perfect for the animals. But on top of that, this has a huge hide. If your ball python is small enough to be in this tank, have this small of a water dish, this is way too big of a hide. So you need to make sure your hide is small enough for your snake to feel comfortable. Your water dish is big enough to hide in. And pretty much this meets none of the criteria for a reptile. This is unfortunately what a lot of pet stores will sell as a reptile kit. You buy it and it'll have like a piece of cardboard wrapped around it with pictures of bearded dragons and snakes. But this is not what's best for them. The next upgraded model, you can get several different size bins. For example, right next to me, This is just one of ours. This is pretty much equivalent to a 28 quart bin. It's a little bit thinner and a little bit longer. And you can also get a lot larger bins. This is a 41 for ball pythons. But just for demonstration's sake, we have this set up. So this is just a 6 quart Sterlite bin. This would be for a baby ball python. But there are holes drilled in the top to allow for airflow and humidity. We've got a plastic water dish that actually has a lip underneath, so the ball python can get underneath and have a cold side hide, stay nice and cold and still hide. This small water dish for this small bin is appropriately sized because the animal can fit inside and soak. And we've got a small hide. Again, you can get larger hides just like this black one in here we threw for the demonstration, but you need to make sure your hide is appropriately sized, and so is your water dish. Now, the reason why this is the next upgraded version from a tank is it would be used with heat tape. So this right here is heat tape. If you plug this directly into a wall, nothing's going to happen. You have to use a Reptile thermostat, which is much safer. You can set it to any temperature you want. If you want a 90-degree hotspot, 92-degree hotspot for your ball python, you actually put a probe on here. This goes on top like this, and now you've got a perfect setup because you control the temperature. If you want to raise it a few degrees, if it's too cold, or you can adjust it. On top of that, inside this little bin right here is a coconut husk. We use Gaps, but there's several different brands out there. Gaps just happens to be the one that we carry. It's a coconut fiber, and it's very large pieces compared to that other bedding. This makes it so the animal can't swallow it. If they do, it's an organic material. It's okay for them to swallow it if it happens, but this is generally safe for them. It holds humidity really well. It doesn't really mold, and it's a superior product compared to this Aspen down below. Now, the number one setup I'm going to show you guys, again, these are for bigger animals, but between our Ackie monitors right here, which actually have quite a large cage because that's what they require, but the fact that there is cork bark, several places for the animals to hide, and they have their own perfect basking spot with one of these around here so they can't burn themselves. A PVC enclosure is number one, pretty much as good as you can get when it comes to reptiles. You can keep a ball python in something huge. This is a 5x2x2, but it's really not necessary. Maybe a 4x2x1. It doesn't need to be anywhere near as tall. These guys really like to climb. So pretty much something like this. This is a 4x2x16. We have some boas in here, but this would be the upgraded model of the plastic bin. So these ones are heated with radiant heat panels, you can see on top. They have very large water dishes, that way they can completely fit inside, they can submerge. This one down here is my favorite. We actually went and took foam, spray foam, put a little bit of wood in there, filled the whole thing, covered the whole thing with brown caulk, and then we took a very, very fine reptile bedding and put it over top for a nice texture. But these guys have an LED light that we turn on just so people can see. They've got some fake plants because these are doom-roll boas, so they like to actually bury themselves in the bedding. They have a hide hidden under there, a basking shelf for even more space, and they can get close to their heat without getting too close. And they have everything they need. They've also got wood in there, different textures. But this would be the peak setup for a ball python. The only thing I don't like about this is I don't have a cold side hide, but 9 times out of 10, these animals, being doom rolls, they hide under the substrate themselves. Normally you can see a little head poking out from under the bedding, but she might be inside of her hide right now. But this I would call number one setup would be a PVC enclosure like these. Now, can you get a glass tank? Make sure it's appropriately sized, have the right size water dish, 1 or 2 even more hides, put nice substrate in just like we had for those PVC tanks, cover it, mist it daily for good humidity. Yes, you can make a glass tank a good setup, But it is much cheaper and easier just to get pretty much whatever size plastic bin. Like this right here is $1. These tanks start at like $40 to $50 if you're getting a lid. That doesn't include any of the stuff inside. But no matter what, if you're getting, let's say, a baby ball python, it's going to need to go from this size bin to this size and change throughout its life, which means you have to get a smaller than this. This is actually a 15-gallon long. You need to start off with something maybe like a 10, then go to like a 20, then get a 40 size breeder. And you're still going to have to be upgrading the animal. It's much cheaper and easier to do this. And again, you could use heat tape for a glass tank, but it's much better for your animal, for their temperature, their humidity, to be able to switch it out, clean it really easy, and it's actually cheaper to just do bins. If, for example, your goal is to get them into a PVC enclosure, something like those Dumeral boas, that would be awesome and perfect, that you start out with a 6-quart Sterlite, go to a 12-quart, go to a 28-quart, and then once that ball python is reaching adult size, then put them inside the PVC enclosure. That saves you from having to buy several smaller size PVC enclosures and continuously upgrade them. You'll only have to spend maybe $20 to $30 in bins throughout their whole lives, and that gives you plenty of time and money to be able to save up for a very large PVC enclosure. Fill it with things like cork bark, like you saw in our Ackie Monitors cages. Use black hides like these. You can get ones that look like rocks. You can use just about anything, but make sure your animal has somewhere safe and warm to hide. Try to give them somewhere cool to hide also. Make sure the water dish is big enough. But no matter what cage you choose, just make sure your animal's needs are being met. Sometimes you're going to have to tweak things. You're going to have to add and take away things throughout their entire lives to make sure they have the proper temperatures and humidity. But that's it for this video, guys. If you have any questions, you can put them in the comments below. If you haven't already, please subscribe. We do new videos every Wednesday, and I'll see you guys next Wednesday.